Hi, it's Gideon Evans.
And Kathy Egan-Taylor from Bad Elizabeth.
We wanted to take a few minutes to talk about a podcast we really like called Origin Stories, hosted by Matthew Shaer and produced by an excellent company, Campside Media.
We love the work they're doing, and we think you should check it out. It's an interview podcast with really interesting guests who tell us about their projects and how they got started.
Mitch Albom, Mimi, leader of The Morning Show, Evan Ratliff of the podcast The Shell Game, the list goes on.
One episode features Roy Wood Jr. talking about his book, The Man of Many Fathers, Life Lessons Disguised as a Memoir.
This clip is really fascinating. Here's Roy Wood Jr. talking about the difference between writing a stand-up act and writing a book.
My issue with writing is that writing a book versus writing comedy is that in a book, you're supposed to lean into the emotion. You can't deflect it with the joke. You shouldn't run from it. You should sit in it, because I think that's one way of playing with the emotions of the reader to make sure that what you're saying sticks. Anyway, how do I as a reader really know if you're being earnest and honest if there isn't some degree of emotion in there?
Yeah. We've had on screenwriters and who've been novelists. Haven't yet had on a comedy writer who's also written a book like this. Tell me more about what you meant by the idea of the importance of scenes and painting a picture for the audience.
The less that you have to try to visualize, the more I can just draw it in your head, like literally Harold and purple crayon, that shit, then you don't have to think about any of it after that. Now you know what this person looks like. You know who this person is. Here we go. There's a chapter called The Legend of Cocaine Mike. And Michael was, somebody that I worked with who did cocaine. And he was a dishwasher, and he was just an interesting looking dude. And so if I were telling a joke about Cocaine Mike on stage, I would just go, man, this coworker, man, just looked like a gremlin that just couldn't stop smoking. Name was Mike. Anyway, Mike did cocaine. Versus he was a black man shorter than me. I stood only 5'9" at that point. His furrowed brow always suggested an intensity of feelings and thoughts happening behind his super bright white eyes, which were always bugged out as if an optometrist was holding a flashlight an inch from his retina. A lifetime of coffee and cigarettes had taken a toll on his teeth, and you could smell it too. The only thing more brown than his teeth were his gnarled fingernails. His work uniform was always dirty. I don't think he washed it, and if he did, he for sure didn't wash his body. Must sliced its way through the fabric and followed him around like an evil spirit. That makes me laugh more than the stand-up version of that. You have to take time to let people absorb these sentences and really start constructing it in their head. Okay, gnarled fingers. Okay, blackened fingers. And what I should have said in hindsight was fingertips.
Where did you write, Roy, when you were working on the manuscript? Where and when did you write? You've got a kid at home, so there's always that.
I wrote it at home. I wrote at home. There was some times on the road where I would play around with it, but for the most part, this book was just once you're in the pocket of doing stuff and editing it, you don't really want to be anywhere where there's outside stimuli or a lot of other stuff going on. I'll never read in a park or write in a park. I don't know how y'all go to coffee shops. I wrote that book and I immediately understood why Stephen King go to Maine. Hey, the fuck away from y'all. Y'all talk too much. It's too much happening. Kids coming in and out the house. What I would do is on my way to work every day, on my way to the Daily Show, this is after COVID at this point when I was starting to write it a little bit, I would voice note, like if the story was about Cocaine Mike, I would walk and just tell the story as if I were telling it to a stranger. And part of why I did that is that I didn't feel like if I typed the story out to start, that it would be as funny, because I don't believe you type the way you talk, because you're constantly thinking about grammar and sentence fragments. Whereas if I'm just walking down the street and I'm like, dude, he snorted cocaine, he stank, he looked like a gorilla, his shirt was sweaty, he had brown teeth, he had one tooth that was more yellow than the other. How you get extra tartar on one tooth? And like, these are abstract, weird thoughts and questions that if I'm in a flow of talking aloud, they're going to come out. And so now I can take those, transcribe that, and then at night really look at the story and go, okay, this part should go here. This is disjointed. Let's move this around. And then that became even more of a tightening of the screws once I got the book to my publisher, and for them to read and look at and give notes and, all of that stuff.
Thanks for listening to this clip from Origin Stories featuring Roy Wood Jr. If you liked it, we recommend you follow the show wherever you get your podcasts.